Greetings folks and welcome to the Electromaker show. This is your midweek roundup of all things maker and embedded and lovely. Now I hope this first show of 2021 would be with my nice new camera and all of my new equipment. Sadly I'm still waiting on a few bits and pieces. Who'd have thought the high price of Bitcoin would make GPUs hard to come by. This is also the first Electromaker show that I'm recording at night because yes, currently, like many of you I'm sure, we are under COVID restrictions and during the day I am a full-time dad. Anyway, that's not going to stop us. This first show of the year has a lot of products to get through, along with of course funding website things and a mystery box competition. So let's get on with the show. So we're going to start the show this week with funding website things, and here we are on Crowd Supply with the Glasgow Interface Explorer. Now this actually came across my digital desk, as it were, a little while ago, and I thought it looked interesting and I earmarked it to look at on the show and somehow never got round to it. Either way, I certainly didn't realize it was on Crowd Supply, and this looks like a fantastic little device for any kind of hardware hacker. Now, as it describes itself, it is a highly capable and extremely flexible open source multi-tool for digital electronics. Now, what does that mean? Well, essentially, no matter what you want to try and communicate with, the Glasgow Interface Explorer is designed to make it easy to do so. And as you can see from the video example right here, this is a way that they can attach and read signals from almost any device without even needing to code, although if you do know a bit of Python, it will be a lot easier. The thing about this that's kind of awesome is that this is an FPGA. So that means that you can reconfigure this to work as any kind of an input and output if you know what you are doing. And they do provide a lot of tools to do that as well. Now, there's a very thorough explanation of this thing on the Crowd Supply page, but just a few choice lines for you here. It can be attached to most devices without additional active or passive components, which is a pretty big deal because usually when you're working with devices, especially if you're not sure what voltage they run, you need a lot of safety involved and a lot of stepping up and stepping down in order to talk with them. It also, one thing that I found very interesting here is that it does not require any programming knowledge, although, like I mentioned, it would be powerful if you know a little bit of Python, because yeah, they've created tools in order to make it easy for anyone to use. This is not the first sort of multi-tool board, like multi-tool hacker board that we've shown on this show. Certainly not even the first one that we've had on Crowd Supply, but this one is definitely very interesting and very well thought out. And usefully, the Crowd Supply page gives us a few examples of how you might use this. Now, the video that we looked at before already showed off the USB to serial adapter, but what the video wouldn't have showed you, or at least you wouldn't have seen with the sound off like this, is that it can auto-detect target voltages, and it will also auto-detect the baud rate. Two things that are a real headache when you're trying to interface with things that aren't necessarily yours, that you didn't configure in the first place, and especially with the growing arsenal of old tech and unknown, unmarked chips that are in everything that we own these days. If you've ever cracked something open to try and repair it yourself just to find out that there's an unknown microcontroller in there and you've got no idea how you can talk to it, this is the perfect thing for that. It's really quite exciting because I sort of have had an interest in doing this myself. Time is always an issue, but something that I talked about in the last show was that people have hacked the Nintendo Game & Watch. This is a tool that would make all the work that they went through a lot easier, and of course they knew what chip they were working with. Now, some of you might be familiar with InfluxDB. I haven't had any hands-on experience of it myself, but I do know that it is sort of a very much a go-to thing, both for enterprise and for hobbyists, for logging any kind of information with timestamps into a database, perfect for reading anything from sensors. And the Glasgow Interface Explorer has built-in support for it. So as it says here, any applet that reads that sensor data can directly log the data and visualize them in Grafana with very minimal effort. Now, taking data and visualizing it is something that is essential, really, if you want to make sense of that data. And of course, anyone that's messed with an Arduino will know that you can do that to an extent in the Arduino IDE. It's one of the things that you learn very early on. This is one of the more robust ways of visualizing data, and it fits very well with the kind of idea behind this board of snooping on devices and working with them, communicating with a whole different range of technology, whether you know exactly what you're working with or not. This is the perfect place to log all of your little Sherlock Holmes-esque discoveries and to try and work out how to talk with tech. There is also a fantastic 2-hour and 20-minute video on using the Glasgow Interface Explorer with an LED panel, which is something that I'm very interested in because I have several LED panels that I haven't quite got round to working with properly yet. And as it mentions here, there are so many different protocols that it can be difficult to work with. The fact that the Glasgow Interface Explorer can be easily reconfigured makes it easier to work with these devices. Now, as I say, this is a long video that I haven't had the time to watch through thoroughly yet. I skimmed through it and I just thought this is exactly the kind of thing that works for me. This is both a low-level explanation of how these things work and showing off a fantastic tool for working with a LED display. And I kind of feel like if you're on the fence about whether this kind of thing would be for you, this actual walkthrough of a project is a very good way to get your head around whether you would want to buy something like this. And there is, of course, a full and very long list of what the Glasgow Interface Explorer is capable of, and I'm not going to go through all of that here. That would be a very long and boring thing for you to listen to. There's a lot of great information on this page, and I suggest you go there and have a look at it yourself. And in terms of the physicality of it, there's a very nice aluminium enclosure for it, along with an emergency stop button, which sounds like such a small thing, but if you're terrified you're going to let the magic smoke out, to be able to just quickly grab it and reset it, yeah, that's going to be something that will be very welcome to those of us who have accidentally fried one too many microcontrollers by wiring them up to the wrong things. But yes, in short, this is a powerful open source interface board that you can use to talk to almost anything. I've covered a couple of these on the show before, and it's something that I am very interested in. I would really like to get into hardware hacking this year, if I manage to find a little bit of spare time. And if I'm going to go for any board at the minute, this looks like the one that excites me the most. Now, as you can see, they have absolutely smashed their funding goal. I think this kind of got under the same level of excitement from other people who know way more than they're talking about than I do already, and a lot of people want to get one. And you can get the Glasgow Rev C, the third revision of the board, for $139, and the aluminium case for a further $50. And as it says, orders placed now will ship in May. This just looks like one of the more powerful versions of these kind of Swiss Army knife boards that you can get. And yeah, I'm really excited to see where this one goes. I am, of course, going to try and not buy one and try and save my money, and I will totally be getting one of these, I'm sure. Anyhow, there'll be a link to this in the description of this video. And now moving on to microByte. Now, as you can see by the format of this page, this is yet to be launched. And as you can see by this image, this is another retro gaming emulator. However, this one is a little bit different. So as you can see from the title, it is ESP32 powered, and obviously you can see from the image it is absolutely tiny, and it comes as this one unit as well. There's a lot about this that I find quite exciting, because there's a lot of open hardware boards out there that are for gaming, and I've talked about a few of them, talked about how certain ones interest me, backed a few, certain ones aren't necessarily for me. This hits me right in the same place as those ESP32 powered wristwatches that are very much do-it-yourself things. So this is specifically designed for games from the NES, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Gear, and a couple of others, yeah, the Sega Master System, on a backlit color IPS display. But it is also compatible with the Arduino IDE, and that's the part of it that really appeals to me. So looking at the specs here and a nice image of it outside of its case, it is an ESP32W Rover E, or Rover E, and if you are not familiar with them, that's a pretty powerful microcontroller with built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and then it has a nice little 1.3-inch IPS screen on it, along with a little speaker and a micro SD card slot, along with all the buttons that you would expect to find on a handheld. Now, yeah, I've covered a few of these before. In fact, all of the ones that are in the bottom C also here are things that we've covered previously on the show. All of them are interesting for their own reasons, and I've talked about that at length in the past as to the fact that I know it does seem like the world is absolutely aflood with retro gaming handhelds, but they all have their own different kinds of charm. And this particular one I find exciting just because it is probably the most compact all-in-one thing that you could just plug into your computer with the Arduino IDE with the intention of saying, I'm going to build, I don't know, Snake from scratch. You have all of the hardware there, you have everything you need to plug in, and while I'm not sure it says directly here, It doesn't. It says it's compatible with the Arduino IDE, but I would be very, very surprised if when this goes live, there isn't also a wrapper library that just very easily attaches all of the inputs and outputs to your sketch, so you can just concentrate on the fun part, which is getting a game working. Much like I mentioned a few shows ago, there are some fantastic channels out there like Javid9X, the One Lone Coder channel that I waxed lyrical about a little while ago, that teach the basics of game development in a way that is kind of platform agnostic. Now, the reason I mention One Lone Coder is because that's all in C++, so it's going to work quite nicely with Arduino code as well. But if you wanted to make a retro game from scratch, or at least a game that is on a retro kind of platform, this might be a very interesting one, and I will be very interested to see how much they're selling it for when it goes live. Of course, I will revisit it then. But for now, if you want to read this landing page, or if you want to enter to subscribe and get more information about it, I'll leave a link to it in the description of this video. And now moving on to a few projects I've seen over the last little while. Now, over Christmas, I was very interested in power banks. In fact, custom power banks is going to be my definite thing that I concentrate on for the first part of this year. I've probably said several times on the show before that I cycle a lot. In fact, I cycle 20 kilometers every morning because that is the round trip to my son's kindergarten, and we don't own a car. I do that ride in the dark quite a lot. And as much as I have my battery lights and that's all fine, I'm very interested in setting up some of my own power on my bike and some sensors and some fun things, and basically getting all makery with my bike. And in short, I stumbled across this Hackaday article, which was perfectly timed, as you can see. It landed on December 27th, and it is a custom power bank. And the link through from the Hackaday article goes to the website of the builder. And yeah, this is someone who does FPV flying with drones, and they wanted something to power their goggles. And the idea is they wanted to try and make a very compact battery pack. Now, what you're seeing here is the first prototype, and this is the finished version in his hand with a printed enclosure. Now, as you can see, there is a little micro USB port on the bottom, and there is a tiny PCB that runs down the center of these 4 batteries. And they are, of course, 18650s, which are the battery of choice, really, if you want simple lithium batteries that have a good level of charge to them and can put out a good bit of power. This is just a very, very nice build. It takes everything that you need in a battery pack and puts it into a lovely little form factor. So this build is by the Flying Rabbit Hole, and the person is called Theo. I don't know anything more about them than that, but if you want to know more, you can come to the website. They have an about page that talks about what they do and their various projects and things like that. The specs for this are, as I said, for FPV goggles. So it has a 9-volt 10-watt output, along with a DC barrel jack connector and USB charging. That was one of the main specs for this project. The idea is that you could charge it using a regular USB charger. And the bonus, as it says here, is that it has a 5-volt output to use it as a power bank. Now, of course, since this is micro USB output, you'll need a micro USB OTG to phone thing, but they're pretty cheap. And in fact, they link the one that they got for their phone here. But yes, the main thing here is the documentation of this project. It's fantastic. It goes through all the steps and how it was put together, it talks a little bit about how the battery specification works, the charging specification, and some of the things that he ran into that weren't particularly easy to do, a few of the mistakes that were made, everything that you want to see in a good project. So another thing that it has, which is amazing considering how small it is and how it all fits together, is a status LED. And as it says, a green LED is connected to the charge pin, the red LED is controlled by an AT-Tiny. And so yeah, LED on, the battery is discharging, LED blinking is a low voltage alarm, which is of course somewhat important because you want to know when your battery is about to run out, especially if you are flying a drone using it. The rest of the write-up has a rough overview of how it all fits together, along with, of course, as I mentioned, the routing and putting it all onto a board, and a few of the issues that came through in manufacturing, a couple of the mistakes that were made that have now been fixed in the actual PCB design. So if you did want to get one of these yourself ordered, you're not going to have the same issues that the builder did. And if you are interested in building one of these for yourself, there is a page on the CircuitMaker website for Theophile Laurent. That is the name of the builder, and here is the power bank controller. so you can get the files for that from here. And yeah, I say this so often on the show, this is a fantastic project. It's definitely something I'm interested in right now. I will be looking into this and maybe using this design, maybe coming up with one myself. I see this as a good opportunity to learn multiple things at once if I'm going to be building my own power supplies. But this was a fairly invaluable thing because it's a simple write-up that covers a few of the things that I would probably not have known otherwise. And of course comes with a fully working PCB design that you can base your own on, or just make exactly this one. Because yeah, if you have an old laptop lying around, you almost certainly have a bunch of 18650 batteries inside it, and you can put those to great use. And as I so often say, even if you aren't interested in building your own power bank right now, this is a great read. It will teach you a lot about how general simple power banks work, and I will leave a link to this project in the description of this video. Now, I have mentioned several times in the past that I am into synthesizers. I've also probably mentioned on the show a few times that I'm quite into live coding. Now, live coding is something when it comes to music that you're probably familiar with if you have a Raspberry Pi, because they mostly come with Sonic Pi installed on them already. And that is, as you're probably aware, a live coding environment that allows you to code in Ruby and make digital music. This project is several steps above that. It's every kind of geeky project that I love. This is live coding VCAs without a screen. Now, I'm playing this without the audio because I want you to go and watch the video, and I really think you should go and watch this video. I know I sound like a stuck record every time I say this, but even if you're not into music and live coding, this is fascinating. In short, there's a keyboard here that is triggering an Arduino with a custom hardware setup that is sending signals to this VCA. And by the way, in case you're wondering, this VCA was built by MiniJack, the person who's put this up. They make custom VCAs, and if you were wanting to get something like this custom built, this is the kind of person that you probably want to support, because this covers so many bases for the things that we all love. So this video goes into a lot of detail. It covers the matrix mixer, that, as I mentioned, is a custom build, and then just goes through a variety of different things, not only how it's done and giving examples of it, but going into great detail as to exactly what each thing does and how it works. But if you, I mean, I want you to go and watch the video. I've already said that. This is one of the more fascinating ones, and it's a really small channel. I just stumbled across it because I'm on the live coding subreddit, and as you can see, it hasn't really had much traction on the live coding subreddit either, but it's such a fascinating project. And yeah, the idea of live coding, which is usually something you do with a computer and a screen and you're looking at the code, but doing that only with hardware in front of you with a purpose-built Maker hardware interface is just on so many levels everything I love. And so yeah, there'll be a link to the Reddit post in the description in case you would like to get in touch with the guy that did it on Reddit. And of course, there's this fantastic YouTube video. MiniJack has a few subscribers. Again, no one's commented on this video. I don't really know why, but I really suggest you go and watch this through because this is one of the more fascinating implementations of digital and analog audio crossovers that I've seen in a long time. Now, those of you that have watched the show for a while will know that I'm a big fan of Mitchell Davis. He put out a fantastic series called Bare Metal MCU, which started with the Arduino Uno, started in the Arduino IDE, and then stripped it back piece by piece until you were programming raw AVR using a programmer on the command line. And that was a fantastic introduction to any kind of bare metal programming. Now, this is a slightly different thing. He's doing an STM32 series. Now, that's in and of itself quite exciting because the STM32 is such a ubiquitous chip, and it's all over the place, and it's got somewhat of a high barrier of entry if you've only done Arduino IDE stuff before. Now, you can of course use these with the Arduino IDE, but this is just a general introduction to the STM Cube 32 or 64 IDE. I can never remember what it's called. STM32 Cube IDE, I remember now. Yeah, this is kind of covers all of those things that if you've ever opened that IDE for the first time and you've tried to get your head around it, it can seem a little bit overwhelming. And exactly the point of this video is to stop it being overwhelming, to just show how you can get started in the most simple way using the STM32 Cube IDE and why it's actually a very, very good thing. Yeah, I hope that you did see the other Mitchell Davis videos because he has a fantastic way of explaining things. He breaks things right down. And another thing I like about it is that he is clearly also learning a lot of this stuff himself. and I'm a great believer in this idea of if you want to get very good at something, teach it. I can't recommend this video enough. If you are in any way interested in the STM32, I would suggest going to this video and following it, because this is video number 2. As you can see, video number 1 is already out. It just goes through a bunch of the different kinds of boards that you can get. But if you have an STM32 Nucleo board, or you have a Blue Pill board, this video series is for you, because he covers how to work with both of them. But yeah, in my job, I see a lot of different tutorials that teach you how to do the basics of microcontrollers, and they all have their good things about them. But there's a certain way that Mitchell explains things that even things that I thought I knew already, they kind of click better in my mind after watching it. And yeah, he's one of my favorite new tutorial content providers, for want of a better phrase. So I'll leave a link to this video in the description. Moving over to the Raspberry Pi subreddit, and we couldn't have a post-Christmas show without some Christmas lights. Now, this is a house that's been rigged up with some WS812 or WS811 LED strips, and this is a time-lapse of the internet controlling them for 30 minutes. Now, as I said, this is a time-lapse, it wasn't moving that quickly, but I think this is just a fantastic little project. Rigging up your own Christmas lights is one of the great loves of all makers, and I know we all wish we had a bit more time to do things a little bit more large scale like this. But as it says here, he built controllable Xmas lights for the neighbors last year, and promised the internet they can control them before they were taken down. Yes, there they are, 12 volt WS811s controlled by a Raspberry Pi B+, which every second pulls an API from a Flask server in the cloud, which hosts a website. And the code is also posted. This is the GitHub for it. But I mean, if you've worked with these kind of LEDs before, you'll be kind of familiar with what the code is doing. This might be quite a nice one if you just want to see a simple server implementation of these kind of LEDs. I know there's a lot of tutorials out there, but this is obviously one in the wild that works very, very well. So it might be a good basis if you want to start working with these kind of LEDs yourself. But yeah, this is, as I said, this is every maker's dream at Christmas, is to rig up a whole house with lights that you control. The fact that they are in the chat and that they're talking to everyone about it is quite nice. This is very many tacos on Reddit if you want to follow the account. But yeah, look, lights, Christmas. And while we're talking about Christmas lights, this is obviously a large scale of it, something I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with because a lot of people have seen this. This is Stand Up Maths, Matt Parker, who is a fantastic YouTube channel I'm sure you are familiar with, usually covers mathematics things, and during lockdown his Christmas project was to set up fully spatially 3D programmable lights on his Christmas tree, again using WS812 LEDs, I think. And yeah, this is a video which goes through exactly how he did it, and yeah, it's just fantastic. 500 LED lights, calculated all of their 3D coordinates so that he can control them perfectly, and it is a fantastic project, and I'm really glad that he's moving into this kind of stuff. He says in the video that this is something that he's wanted to do for a long time, but he hasn't had the time, and of course now we all have a little bit more spare time on our hands sometimes because of lockdown situations, and this is what he decided to do in his, and so I will also leave a link to this video, and it's just fantastic. It's so nice to see someone who I've been watching for a long time move into something that I'm so interested in, because I am interested in maths, but I watch maths videos in the same way that I watch video games videos. It's something that I'd like to watch someone else do, and I don't really have much time to do myself. But yeah, I'll leave a link to this one in the description as well. And if any of you try to do anything fun with your Christmas tree lights or anything like that, please do let me know in the comments. I am really interested to see what you all got up to with lights over Christmas. It is time for the mystery box competition, and unfortunately the mystery box is still under a lot of other boxes, but that isn't going to stop us from picking a prize out, and I will head down here. The box is here, it's just under another box, and yeah, I'll be back. And today's prize is in an anti-static bag, and it is a Teensy 3.2. Now, I'm sure most of people watching this show will not need any introduction to Teensy boards. They are widely, just generally known as kind of the powerful alternative to the Arduino because of their fantastic compatibility with the Arduino IDE and the fact that they are blazingly fast. I'm not going to go away and find details about the Teensy boards. I'm sure you know everything there is to know about them, and this is a pretty cool little prize to give away. Just so you know, this is the Teensy 3.2. It does have the pins soldered onto it, And I know from experience that as well as being very powerful little boards, these ones are actually pretty good for doing audio with as well. So if you are like me and you like making little bleeps and bloops using microcontrollers, this is a very beautiful thing to have. So yeah, this is a pretty cool prize, at least from where I'm standing. But what we need is a prize winner. And the winner of this week's mystery box competition is Asger Vestjörg. Now, I may have mispronounced your name horribly, and I apologise, but we'll be in touch with you as to how we can get this prize out to you. And yeah, I think Teensy is a pretty solid addition to any arsenal, and you can never have enough of them, so I'm very glad we're giving this one away. So, the mystery box competition will return in a slightly more open form, where you can, you know, see the mystery box once again. But until then, let's get on with the show, huh? And we're going to close out this week's show with a bunch of new projects and updates and things like that. And we have quite a few to get through, but I really wanted to start with this one. This is a Hackaday article that I got sent, and this is a Arduino competitor. And as you can see, this is your typical Arduino Uno form factor, but this is the Brainfuino, which uses, how am I going to say this? BrainFEC? Yeah, let's get Father Ted about it. It's a native BrainFEC Arduino. I'm sure I'm going to mess that up and say a word that I shouldn't be saying on the show, but if you do, please forgive me. I'm not meaning to swear at you. But yes, this is an Arduino board which actually does run BrainFEC natively because it uses a lattice FPGA in order to parse BrainFEC code natively, which is fantastic and incredibly dumb. And if you're wondering why I'm saying it's dumb, it's because BrainFEC is an esoteric programming language. And if you aren't familiar with esoteric programming languages, they're not designed to be used, really. They're designed to be sort of examples of how you can set up programming languages in a variety of crazy ways. And yeah, just for clarity, this is Hello World in BrainFEC. And there is a full explainer here on the Wikipedia page for it, which says exactly how it works. There's a number of characters which move you up and down the memory stack, and yes, I love esoteric programming languages. I think they're such a funny and silly thing. And the fact now that there is an Arduino board which runs natively using this language is just so silly. It's fantastic. I am so happy that things like this exist. Let me be absolutely clear. If you want to do anything with this, like, you know, if you want to spool up a project and prototype something, you don't want this board. You want this board because it's just amazing that it's been made. You want this board because someone thought, how can I make the most ludicrous microcontroller board ever? And yeah, this is it. I mean, it uses an FPGA. It also uses an STM32, but that's just for the USB to serial, I think, if I remember correctly. So yeah, I'll link this Hackaday article, which links out to various things. There is a video here, which is a sort of TLDR, which is a short 3-minute video, which takes you through everything that this board is. And yeah, it's just a fantastic thing. I am so happy it exists. I am definitely getting one of these. And there is a GitHub as well, which takes you through everything that it is, everything that it can be, and the advantages over the Arduino Uno. This is all so tongue-in-cheek. But yeah, I'm not fully sure where to get one quite yet. I'm going to look into it. But yes, it's just, one analog input, yeah, and a nice reset button, yeah. Moving on to CNX Software, who have covered the MKR SharkyPro BLE. Now, this is a development board for Zigbee and OpenThread, and I've talked a little bit about OpenThread in the past when I was talking about some wireless light bulbs. I think Thread being the new hotness for doing smart home things. A lot of people think it's going to be the successor to Zigbee. I'm not so sure, because Zigbee is very, very ingrained in a lot of things. But this is a little board, and as you can see, if you're familiar with the Arduino MKR, it is the same form factor. So this board is obviously going to be interesting for anyone who wants to roll their own smart home and home automation stuff. It has all of the connectivity that you would expect of something like this, along with Bluetooth 5 Low Energy, Bluetooth Mesh, and works with, as I mentioned before, OpenThread and Zigbee, along with other proprietary protocols. But the main thing that will be interesting to a lot of you, I suppose, is the chip, which is the STM32WB55, which is a dual-core system on chip with an ARM Cortex-M4 running at 64 MHz and an ARM Cortex-M0 Plus running at 32 MHz, which, as as it mentions here, will be the network processor. And I feel like this is something that will really grab the attention of anyone that is kind of getting into the idea of doing things with Zigbee and Thread, that want to really control it themselves. What I don't know right now is the price. It is available on their website. There's a link to it out from this article. It seems they're having an issue with the image right now, and it explains what it is, but there's no actual price here. You can just ask for a quote. But yes, as it says here, it is compatible with Arduino MKR boards. It has the same form factor and can be programmed with the Arduino IDE because of the STM32 project, which is something I've talked about at length before. It's very nice, I think, that a lot of these STM32 boards can be programmed using the Arduino IDE, but as I mentioned slightly earlier in this video, if you want to get into programming them the proper, you can't see me doing air quotes, but the proper way using STM's software, the Mitchell Davis video I showed you earlier will be very useful for that. However, I don't know if and when this will be usable with the STM32Cube IDE. I haven't actually checked to see if the new system on chip is supported in the IDE yet. You'd think so before they launch it, but I'm not sure. In terms of GPIO, as you can see here, 2x14 pin headers. Already mentioned, it's compatible with the Arduino MKR, and it has USART, ADC, SPI, I2C, and QSPI. But yeah, as well as being just a generally nice looking little development board, which has a lot of features packed in, again, especially good if you're looking into rolling your own home automation or some kind of home mesh system. It also runs on relatively low power and has a battery connector. In fact, if you look at this little breakout chart here, you can see that you can run via battery, or you can run via VIN, which is a 2.5 to 5.5 via the VIN pin, or you can power it via the micro USB port. So there's a lot of ways to work with this thing. Yeah, I'll be coming back to this one when there's more information about it, when there's a price, when it's easy to find, because yeah, this is a super interesting little board. I am very, very interested in seeing where this one goes, how it is adopted. And like I always say, I don't necessarily need to get one of these right now. I'd be very surprised if I don't get one, as long as they aren't hideously expensive. But if you want to read this fantastic article from CNX Software, I will leave a link to it in the description of this video. Moving on to a new product from DFRobot, which is an ultrasonic sensor called the Gravity IC. Now, this is kind of exciting for me because, as far as I'm concerned, there's only been one name in ultrasonic sensors for a very long time, and that is the HC-SR04. These things are absolutely ubiquitous. They're used everywhere. They're in almost every Arduino starter kit, and as far as I was concerned, like you get these ones, and then you can get the very, very high-grade industrial ones, and there doesn't really seem to be that many other ones around. So to see something a little bit new is nice. Now, I don't know enough about ultrasonic sensors to be absolutely sure what advantages this gives you over the cheaper HC-SR04, but one thing I have noticed is that the stated measurement range for this is 2 centimeters to 500 centimeters. Now, theoretically, the HC-SR04 can do that as well, but the usable range is much, much smaller. I don't know if this is similar in that the usable range will be much smaller. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So yeah, a new ultrasonic sensor. I probably will get a hold of one of these just to try it out. I have a little robot that is one of those self-driving little cars that you get the Arduino kits that I've been kind of building in my own way, in that I've been trying to sort of program it myself and learn how it works from the ground up as I do, and I'll probably give one of these a go to try it out. There's a specifications page here as well on the shop link, and I will leave a link to it in the description. And if you do end up getting one of these, or even if you just know a little bit about ultrasonic sensors and you can tell me why this is or isn't any better than the traditional HC-SR04 ultrasonic sensors, please do let me know. I'd be very, very interested to hear. Moving on to the Inforce Computing 6560 single board computer. Now, this is exciting because it is one of the more powerful ARM boards that I've ever seen. That is because of the Snapdragon 660 chip that it has on it. Now, there are a bunch of things about this that are interesting. It has quite a lot of RAM as well. If I remember correctly, it's 3 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM or something like that, which sounds a bit weird. Maybe I'm saying that wrong, and it's 4 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM. Either way, as you can see from this block diagram, it has a huge amount of different inputs and outputs, but the main thing is this Snapdragon 660 core. I mean, that is an 8-core chip. Yeah, I was right, it is 3 gigabytes of DDR RAM, and it also has a 32 gigabyte eMMC. Now, I came across this through ETA Prime. It's very rare we have a show that we don't talk about ETA Prime, and there is a fantastic video on his channel taking you through all the things you need to know about it. Yeah, there isn't all that much more to say other than that this is an astonishingly powerful little board. Now, one thing to bear in mind at the time of making this video is that this only runs Android 8.1, and as I mentioned in the past, I don't really have that much need for Android on a single board computer, but with something this powerful, it seems incredibly likely that there will soon be a Debian or some form of Linux build for it as well. One other thing that's worth bearing in mind is that this board can support power over Ethernet, which is something that I know a lot of people like. At the time of making this, I only found one link to buying it that was on the Mouser website, because the actual website for Inforce is not there. I don't know why. Their website is 404ing for me at the minute. I'd just try one more time, and I've just realized I've probably been calling this InnoForce for the entire time when it's Inforce Computing. But yes, the Inforce Computing site appears to be down. I did find a link to it on Mouser, and it is around 200 euros on Mouser, which is not all that surprising because, as I mentioned, this is probably the most powerful single board computer of this type that I've ever seen. So the ETA Prime video that I saw this on, as always, goes through all the usual benchmarks that he puts things through, of course, along with some retro gaming, because it's ETA Prime, and of course there's going to be some gaming on every single board that he reviews. And as always, it's a fantastically in-depth review. I suggest you go and have a look at the video here. I will leave a link to this in the description, and as I mentioned, if you do want to get one of these, unfortunately you can't really get them from Inforce Computing, at least until their website comes back, but they are available from Mouser. And sticking with ETA Prime, but only because this is the only place that I have found this information. This is an ETA Prime exclusive, I suppose. So once again, please do go to his video and watch it. I don't want to steal his thunder. But yes, this is exciting. PiBoy CM4 and SRX are handheld gaming devices. And yes, we cover a lot of those on this show, but these are designed to be used with the Raspberry Pi Compute module. Yes, the PiBoy is something that we've talked about in the past. They are among the best handheld Raspberry Pi builds that you can get for different kinds of gaming, and this looks pretty damn exciting. So as I mentioned, this is an exclusive to ETA Prime, and I suggest you just go and watch his video. I will leave a link to this one in the description, but oh boy is this one exciting. I know I say and apologize for covering so many retro gaming devices on the show, but to be frank, there are a lot of them, and they are very innovative, and ones that use the Raspberry Pi as a backbone have a particularly special place in my heart. And yeah, head over to ETA Prime's channel. I will leave a link to this video in the description. And finally, for this week's show, a little teaser from Adafruit on their panel mount TFT ESP32-S2 Feather. Now, I've talked in the past about how much of a shame I thought it was that there weren't so many ESP32-S2 boards out there. However, that is changing. In fact, I covered the ESP Morpheus board on the show a little while ago, which is a similar thing. It's got the TFT screen on, and this is Adafruit's version of that. And as they say, they slept in and had a tasty bagel breakfast and jumped into the first design of the year. So they've been designing a bunch of Feather ESP32 PSBs, and this is just a design as of now. They're not available, but yeah, as you can see, this is a incredibly dense board. It has the ESP32-S2 chip on there, along with a battery charging and running circuit here, and a bunch of other goodies. And as you can see on the back, there is a full color TFT display. And there's a nice little bit of story here that they actually wanted to do this before, but they couldn't fit everything onto it without it being so large, and they wanted it to fit the Feather form factor, but improvements in mini TFT technology allowed it to be reborn. And yeah, there's everything you kind of need on this board. I'm very excited about it. Let's be real, you know I'm going to buy one of these things. It's my vice. Some people buy shoes, I buy little microcontroller boards. So yeah, I will leave a link to this Twitter status in the description of the video, and when more information comes out about it, we will definitely revisit it. Now, that's everything for this week's show, but that's not to say there weren't some other awesome projects that cropped up over the Christmas and New Year period. If anything really grabbed you that we haven't covered on the show for this week that you think it would be worth looking back on in a future show, please do leave a comment on this video about it and I will look into it. There's just been so many good things over a very quiet Christmas for a lot of people that there was just too many things to fit in the one show. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed the show. Take care. that was our Electromaker show for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, if you leave a comment on this video, you'll be entered into the mystery box competition. And as always, I'm just liking to hear what you're up to in general. There's the start of the new year. I'm sure people have got lots of plans and things they want to do. Please let me know what you're up to, and maybe, of course, it will be featured on the show. But anyway, this is hopefully one of the last stripped down shows that we will have. I'm really looking forward to getting the new studio and everything properly set up. In fact, one of the reasons the camera angle is so weird right now is I'm standing surrounded by boxes and things. So that's very exciting. But for now, I hope you have a fantastic and safe week, and I will see you soon.